Hello, my angels, and welcome to episode 3 of the new season of Inner Worlds. In the first episode, I shared with you, in what ways I've really expanded in the last 2 years and all the contractions as well. Everything I've been experiencing, everything I've been going through. I really hope that you maybe saw yourself in a bit of what I shared. And in the second episode, I finally, after nearly 2 years, after 2 years, I got to introduce you to arguably the most important person in my life, my other half. I was so happy with how he carried himself through that episode. Guy doesn't like talking about himself so much. He really likes putting the focus on other people, but he's also always seen himself one day teaching, specifically teaching about preparing for a relationship and relationships and love and helping men to show up powerfully and lovingly in their partnerships. And he's so good at that. So it was really a beautiful moment to watch him step into that role and start to share his experience and his advice because he's so good. So if you haven't heard those episodes yet, I highly recommend that you do go check them out. In this episode, I want to talk to you about fate, about how we make choices in our lives, how we mourn the choices we didn't take, and being really intentional as we navigate our lives. I'm going to share a little bit more about my pregnancy as well, how I found out I'm expecting, the spiritual journey it's taken me on, and I also now know the gender of my baby. So we're going to have our own little gender reveal in our episode. Just really quickly, thank you to everyone who has been endlessly supportive with my spiritual jewelry line, Alchemy by LA. You've allowed me to forego working in the guidelines of, other companies and sponsors. You're allowing me to self-fund my videos and my podcasts. So a huge shout out to you. I'm so grateful. I didn't always know I'd want to be a mother. Actually, I'd had years and years of insecurities that maternal instinct, that desire for my own baby, my own child, didn't come to me naturally like it seemed to come to the women in my life and my friends. My work and my spiritual work, especially in my 20s, that was my baby already. I really felt content with my life. I loved being on my own. And honestly, there was a part of me that was so scared of the responsibility of taking care of something else outside of myself. It was harrowing to me, honestly, up until I got Jupiter and had to care for him myself. In the last few years, I've come to learn that this maternal instinct and this desire for offspring is very, very natural to many, many women, but it is far from ubiquitous. It's not all of us, right? Some of us decide that motherhood isn't a part of the plan in this lifetime. Or maybe some of us can't have that be part of the plan, right? And some of us have to choose to make a very intentional decision to do this thing, to do it even though we're scared and even though it doesn't necessarily come supernaturally. I'm that part of the population. Before Guy, I saw 2 choices in my life and I didn't know which one would play out. Either I was going to meet the love of my life and start a family, or I spend this incarnation on my spiritual journey, letting go of physical attachments and really attaining enlightenment. And to be completely honest with you, the second option was more appealing to me for a really long time. But I would go on to understand that doesn't come from a pious place. That doesn't come from, all that makes sense is transcending this reality and rejoining with the divine. It actually came from a place of fear of commitment, a place of fear of responsibility and a fear of failure. I also know now how naive it was to think that my spiritual journey can only deepen if I renounce the material world and the entire human experience. Getting married and starting a family, though it comes with all its own challenges and triggers and fears, it doesn't need to take away from your spiritual journey. If anything, it deepens it. Yes, it will take time away, likely, from hours spent in contemplation of the cosmos, contemplation of reality, hours spent in meditation. And it might take time away from focusing solely on yourself and your own transcendence. But in so many other ways, it gives you opportunities to level up spiritually, to expand, really in too many ways to count, because relationships and your children and your connections are your biggest teachers in this lifetime. These experiences teach you lessons that would take lifetimes to learn, if not for the triggers of family life. So when I think about this new stage in my life, I think about this interesting concept in Hinduism. Hinduism teaches a concept called ashramas. Ashramas. Excuse my pronunciation for this whole next part, please. I read a lot, but sometimes I don't hear these things being said out loud. And ashramas basically divides a person's life into 4 stages. And each one of these life stages is a part of spiritual enlightenment. They're all equally parts of the journey. So the first is brahmacharya. I studied this phase of life extensively in college. I studied Eastern studies and yogic studies. This stage of life is the student life, appropriately, right? It's the part of life that we focus on education, on learning, and on becoming disciplined, kind of becoming humans, right? Becoming people who can contribute to a society. And then after student life, you move into the grihastha part of life. Grihastha. This is called householder life. This stage of life is focused on family. It's focused on your career and how you contribute to society. Now, after householder life, the third aspect is we move into vanaprastha, the hermit life, where you have already raised your children, right? You have already contributed to society. You have worked, you have built a life, and now you actually begin to withdraw from any material pursuits, any responsibilities, really, and you can focus more on spirituality wholly. So for example, around retirement age, let's say in the US, right? Your kids are out of the house, everybody has their own lives, and you kind of have this empty nest. It's either you're alone or with your partner, and you make this decision to begin to withdraw. And then the last and final part is sannyasa, the renunciate life, where a person might renounce the world entirely, completely, and focus completely on spiritual liberation. And this stage happens to be towards the end of, our lives. And this is how yogis often deliberately leave their bodies rather than pass away spontaneously. If you've studied yogis at all, you know that this is kind of a common phenomenon amongst them where they can decide when it's time for them to leave their material reality and their physical bodies, and they will just drift away. The most enlightened amongst us will be able to leave our body at will. You've done everything that you need to do in this life, and it's time to rejoin the creator. And while I'm not saying that this journey is for all of us, I'm not even saying it's for me necessarily, it does give me great comfort because once again, it is such a strong reminder that there's a time for everything, and that family life or career life, for some of us who don't have a desire to maybe start a family, right? It's also a part of our spiritual journey. I also had to have this really intentional perspective shift that perhaps the reasons why I wasn't so excited about starting a family and, even motherhood is because the examples I've had haven't been something that I want to model my own life after. And I had this moment where I just realized something that I've affirmed to myself my entire time is that I can do things differently than anybody else. That just because somebody else did something one way doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. Just because 100 people are doing this doesn't mean that there's no space for me to do it, right? Kind of claiming this power that we can do things our own way, no matter what it is. We can forge our own path. And so I had a very empowering moment when I realized I can do family life, I can do being a wife, and I can do motherhood in my own way, in a way that feels meaningful and spiritual and connected and intentional for me and fun for me, right? I didn't have the best example because my mom was sick my whole life. She was in pain my whole life. My parents divorced and she struggled, and she was never, I don't know when I ever saw my mom really happy, except for maybe in my early childhood years. I have memories of her laughing. Maybe that subconsciously, or not maybe, that absolutely subconsciously imprinted on what I believe motherhood and family life is going to be like. And so I had to break out of the chains and the confines of my own limiting beliefs and decide that I can do it my own way. And each one of us can. No matter what it is that we've been programmed to believe our life will look like as children, nothing is written in stone. We came here to experience materiality. All of this is an opportunity to be in our bodies, to play the role of whatever personality and situation we were put in, to experience all of it. And to experience it fully. We did this all intentionally. We came here for a reason. And I really want to figure that reason out every day. I've shared before that when Guy and I first started dating, I told him I always thought that I would spend my life simply in spiritual pursuit rather than, quote unquote, settle down and start a family. I realized that he was the trigger that really made me want that made me realize, oh, we can do this our own way. I don't have to relive what I saw in my childhood. And the universe sent me Guy for that exact reason. And because we are meant to meet again in this, contractually. The universe really does send you people when you're ready for that season in your life and for how their presence is going to expand you and expand your consciousness. So yeah, I feel like I'm meant to experience this householder part of my life right now. And I truly believe that for many people, we might explore the world spiritually on our own until we finally reached a place where we need something new thrown in to allow us to expand more. And that can come in many different forms, in many different opportunities and potentials. I do often see it come up as a relationship, not necessarily always a romantic one, but definitely as another person walking into your life and shaking things up and making you rethink everything you've known before. A relationship is such a deep spiritual experience. It allows you to see who you are as if you're looking into a mirror. Anything that triggers you about the other person or anything that you love about the other person says and gives feedback about you and the personality and the ego structures and your soul and your spirit. All the fears come to the surface to be looked at. You learn how to love yourself and how to love others in deeper and more profound ways. You might see all the places in which you do feel worthy of love, but also all the places where you've kept it out of your life, even unconsciously. Relationships teach you sacrifice, and they also teach you to receive joyfully. And then maybe for some of us, perhaps it's time to explore something new, like bringing a soul into this world, making the immaterial material through the joining of two souls who are already in physical form. And maybe the three of you made this agreement before you ever took corporeal form, becoming a Stargate portal for the divine in service of bringing something new to the human experience, a new flavor, a new little human that I get to, God willing, watch explore the world with her innocent and new eyes. And so they make my eyes new. They make my eyes fresh. And this doesn't have to be, of course, from a child, a baby. It could come in many different ways. And like I said, I've always loved babies and children, always. But a desire to be a mother was not necessarily innate in me. And maybe it was innate in me and it was hidden under so much subconscious programming from childhood, right? That's also a possibility. What matters is that I made the decision. I was very intentional about it, and the divine timing was there. This was the next step to my spiritual evolution, and also for guys, because I was granted the gift of becoming this vessel that gets to grow my child and bring my child into the world. Okay, so this next part might be super foreign to a lot of you, but I think it's so interesting to learn from other religions and cultures, and so I want to share it with you. A lot of you have asked me to share more about the wedding and the process leading up and the rituals and all that. I think I will weave it in throughout the season, like I am about to do right now. So before a Jewish wedding, a bride takes time away from her groom, whether that be, a couple days, or some people do longer, like 10 days. Actually, religious Jews don't live together before their wedding, so I'm speaking about more secular or more cultural Jews here, right? That's how I am. So we don't see our partner for 2 days to maybe up to 10 days or even like a week before the wedding. And we start this separation when the bride goes into a mikveh or a mikvah. It's a ritual bath that restores our purity. So a woman doesn't start visiting a mikveh until she's about to get married. So the first time is right before she gets married. My first mikveh was on February 20th, 2024. And it was one of the most spiritual and beautiful events of my life. And from that day, so this was 2 days before my wedding, Guy and I stopped speaking. Any communication had to go through my mom or through my friends. And we didn't see each other. We slept apart in different places. And then I did the mikveh on Tuesday morning, and we were married on Thursday night. So mikveh can kind of be compared to a baptism, I think. But this is mostly for women, only except for the ultra-Orthodox men who might do it as well in their own, separated mikveh. The setup is also different, and you're also completely naked, and you're usually alone with the person who is guiding you. and they're not dunking you, you're submerging yourself. So the mikveh is usually underground in some way. You walk down into a mikveh. I was in Barbados in the end of 2023, and I went to a friend's wedding at a synagogue. There was a synagogue in Barbados, and they had uncovered there a 400-year-old mikveh in Barbados. So that was a really powerful thing to see. There's underground mikvehs being found all over the world. It's so cool that this ancient tradition we're still building mikvehs now. A mikveh has to either be a natural spring or the ocean or some sort of moving body of water. But since, temples since antiquity build their own mikvehs, they must gather 40 se'ah, which is an ancient measurement equaling about 200 gallons of rainwater. And that water must remain in movement. It can't become stagnant. It has to be moving water, which is something that we see in a lot of different religions and cultures and well-being practices from indigenous cultures around the world. Moving water seems to be the healthiest water. When water stagnates, it's symbolic for stagnation of energy and chi. So before the mikveh, you have to get super, super, super clean in whatever way you normally groom yourself. So let's say you normally shave your whole body. You would do that extra well that day. If you don't shave, you don't have to do that. And you have to be all natural. So no extensions. I think they started saying nail polish is okay because it's become such a part of modern life. It just has to be super tidy and super fresh. So you go in completely naked. The rabbanit, or the woman who is there to help you through your mikveh, she averts her eyes and she helps you with the prayers. The water has to touch every single part of your body and fully submerge you. And each time you submerge, the woman guiding you has to determine whether the dunk was kosher or not. And so she'll sing to the heavens. She'll sing kasher. And it's really a very cool experience. And so you dunk 1 to 7 times, depending on your tradition. I dunked 3 times. Each time I got up out of the water, I recited a prayer to God, to the divine. And in this moment, I was given time to ask and visualize for everything I wanted for me, for my husband, for our marriage, and for our life together. And so in the mikveh, I received a vision of our future children. I don't remember how many I saw. I just saw that we were surrounded with them and that everything was sunny and green all around us. And this brought me such a feeling of peace and joy. My mom was with me. She was standing outside of the mikveh. And it was a really touching moment because the last time she had been in a mikveh was when she married my dad, but she didn't have as nice an experience as I did, so she never went back to the mikveh. After my experience, I was so excited and ecstatic that I would get to do this again and again every month, 2 weeks after my moon time. But the thing is, the mikveh is there for miracles. And of course, a baby is always a miracle. So when a woman is in need of healing, or if she wants to get pregnant or pray for something or someone else, she goes to the mikveh when it is her time, and then she's made anew. That day was so beautiful. That Tuesday, the Rabbanit told me I'm like our holiest prayer book after the mikveh and on my wedding day. So to touch me on that day is like touching a holy book. I can pray for anyone and everyone. So I spent that day in prayer. And at night, my closest friend threw me a challah baking event where we drank wine and we did a ritualistic bread bake, where all the women got together and we baked bread. We prayed for the world. We prayed for ourselves, for our families. I prayed for my friends who wanted to become pregnant or who were about to give birth, for my friends who were still looking for their partners, for my friends, family members who needed a little healing. Basically, it was a day full of prayer, full of love. It was so magical, so mystical. I felt that the sky above me was open and I was communing directly with the divine all day. And then on our wedding day, under the chuppah, which is the structure, the canopy where we get married under as Jews, Guy and I have a list of 4 baby names that we haven't told anybody about. I think maybe I shared one name with my sister-in-law that we agreed that we love. We said those 4 names under the chuppah to each other. No one heard us. And it's almost felt like our spirit babies were with us under there. And we are building this home, right? The chuppah, or the canopy, represents the home that we are building together. It was like they were with us already. So I got to do exactly 1 more mikveh after my wedding before my moon time stopped and I realized I was pregnant. So after our honeymoon and my moon time, I counted 7 days in preparation for the mikveh. And then I got ready to do my first ritual bath as a married woman. It was so magical to me because you're doing this modern day ritual that our ancestors were doing thousands of years ago. And it's just a time to go and meditate and ask God for what you want, and just to, be able to really just request whatever it is you want and not feel selfish about it. Really, just like when we do our new moon and full moon ceremonies and rituals. So I loved it so much. I recommend it to anyone who's able to experience it. Alas, I only got to do one more, and now gratefully of course, I don't get to do another one until my moon returns after I have my baby. So yeah, I had decided I was ready, and divine timing and blessings allowed for this experience. And I can't explain how grateful I am and how I'm still shifting every day my perspective on motherhood and on children. And it's all scary. I don't take it lightly. I don't take it for granted. I know that it's natural for a lot of us that maternal instincts really kick in. I'm a person who looks at everything so deeply and thinks about everything so deeply. And I can't escape that in this situation either. So every day is just like conversations with my baby, trying to figure out what it's going to be like, and also really welcoming it into the world. In between my wedding and my last mikveh, I talked to Guy a lot about the fears that were coming up. I was scared. I was mourning the other paths that were available to me. It was the happiest time of my life. Don't get me wrong. I married a person that was created for me, and I was created for him. And we were starting a family together. And this is something that he's wanted with me for a long time. Of course, I was ecstatic, but I had these fears coming up. What would happen to my career? What would happen to my spiritual journey? Am I going to become like my parents? Are we going to be like my parents? What will happen to my body? What will happen to my health? These might seem like selfish considerations for some, but they're fears that so many of us face. And for some, those worries and those fears really outweigh the desire for bringing life in. And that's valid. For me, I chose to do it even if it scared me, right? Having a partner that let me talk through my fears was a really important part of that. So that's the journey to conception, to deciding that I am ready to bring this spirit in. So let me tell you a little bit about how I found out. First of all, 2 weeks before I took my test, I had 2 conception dreams. So conception dreams are dreams that, many cultures believe predict or symbolize that conception of a child or has taken place, or it's the beginning of a pregnancy. It does seem like I had my dreams right as conception was kind of taking place, more or less. So first I dreamt of a bull. Bulls are seen as symbols of fertility and virality. They represent new beginnings and the start of a new phase in life. By the way, I found all this out right between the 2 eclipses in March and April, which were times of endings and huge new beginnings. I actually had so many of you message me and tell me you found out you were expecting during that time as well. Spring, of course, is a big time of fertile energy. So yeah. In Mesopotamian culture, which my DNA is all Babylon and Mesopotamia, so it is so fitting that I saw this. Bulls are associated with the god Enlil, the deity of fertility. I don't know whether I consciously knew this at the time, but I woke up from that dream knowing in my gut that I had a conception dream, knowing that's what it was, that something was coming. 1 week later, I had a dream that I had given birth to a tiny little boy who had the name I'd want to name my future son, one of the names that we said under the chuppah. And also in the dream, I was missing my pregnant body. I felt such strong longing for it. I missed it so much. And then 2 or 3 days before I actually tested, I had this really fitful night where I couldn't sleep, and I kept slipping in and out of different worlds and realities and dimensions. And in the middle of the night, I left my body a little bit. I was hovering over it. And when I was hovering over it, I saw this comet of energy coming from the sky, and the comet was blue and golden light, and it slammed into my physical body right where my womb would be. And so in my half awake, half alert state, I either said out loud or I was thinking, my child's soul has just landed in my body. Even after all this, I wasn't actually convinced I was pregnant already. My moon time had become unpredictable over the last few months. My cycle went from the normal 29 days to 30 days and then 31 days. So it wasn't until I reached 33 days that I was starting to think that this might be the real thing. I'm somebody who is very in tune with my cycles, very in tune with my hormones. So that's why I was able to catch it so quickly. I know that women who might not track kind of don't realize that they missed their first period. And so that's why it takes a little bit longer to find out. But I've known since, the first day. So it's felt like forever already, honestly. I tested later that day when I was at my best friend's house. I did that because I always thought that I wanted to surprise Guy and set up something really cute and beautiful for him when we got the news. So I knew that if I tested it at home and he was at home, that I would not be able to hold myself back from telling him. So I tested at my best friend's house. We honestly just did it for fun, but it immediately showed positive. We were screaming, running around her house with her baby in her arms. She and I have been friends since we were 8 years old. And a week or two later, she told me she was also pregnant with her second baby. Our due dates are less than 1 week apart. So that's really, really special. I ended up deciding, I was with Guy like 4 hours later and I realizing like he doesn't want to be on camera for this. He doesn't want me to set up a whole picnic and do all this. And I'm so excited. Let me share this excitement with him. So I ended up sharing it with him later that night. And we're just been so excited and it's surreal. I don't even know if it's feeling that real yet. Even when we heard our baby's heartbeat, I think maybe that made it feel a little bit more real. But yeah, it's very surreal. Something about choices in this life. I think that a lot of us go through life hoping for things to happen, but never really choosing them. I think that life is asking us to choose things. I chose when it was time for me to meet my soulmate. I chose when it was time to say goodbye to what could have been and embrace this new mystery, right? And I also intentionally chose to become a mother. I really had to choose it. It wasn't something that I always knew I wanted. I had to choose it. I read the book Spirit Babies early on, and it has a story and a section about, how whatever we want in our lives, we really have to choose it, not just hope for it to come, but choose it. And that's how I've been manifesting things lately. I'm not just hoping for something, right? I'm not just asking for something, I'm choosing it. I'm almost demanding it with a lot of love, a lot of gratitude, compassion, and faith. So it's this powerful realization that nothing is coming from me. I don't have to make anything happen. I just demand of the divine, a demand of the creator, and the creator has no problem giving us whatever we want as long as we have faith and belief that it could happen, that it is possible. I've also been thinking about fate in our choices. Do we have free will? Did I choose this future, this reality, or was this always predestined? And what I've always taught is that the creator, the divine, is so powerful that anything we choose out of our own free will is also destiny. It's also fate. We can't get behind consciousness just like we can't get behind the universe and the creator. I still believe in that. I also believe that there's certain things that are meant to happen for us in one way or another contractually. And in the infinite ways reality could happen and our life could play out, that this thing has to happen, but that we have free will when it comes to how we react to these things and how we embrace them. Change and death, for instance. These are two things we can be confident will happen. People will die, they will leave their physical body, and everything is in constant change all of the time. So these things are destined, they're fated. But we have free will when it comes to how we flow with them, how we embrace them, how we react to them. Again, choices. I had to choose to become a mother. I had to fully intentionally accept it. And I wonder if there's something you've been calling in that you can be even more intentional about, that you can choose. Look at it as if you're choosing lunch off a menu at a restaurant. Choose that reality. Choose from the menu of experiences that the universe is offering you. I also have to, of course, and want to acknowledge that there are many people, many women who desire and make a solid choice to become a mother, and perhaps it just hasn't happened yet, or maybe it's not in the cards. That has nothing to do with you and your inability to choose hard enough. This is a part of contractual destiny and fate. I don't know how many in my particular community are maybe struggling with this. I do want to share the few things that could help in this journey in case you need to hear it from me. I can't imagine that there are things that are new to you. I just, from my experience, I recommend reading the book Spirit Babies, because even though a lot of the spiritual information might be knowledge we already have and know, there's such potent reminders that you're not alone in this journey. Everybody's path is different, and every spirit baby takes their own path to get here, to being here. Now, I also believe that getting weekly acupuncture that I did leading up to my pregnancy. I did it for about 8 months. My goal was to balance my hormones, not to get pregnant, but I do think that this also inadvertently helped me with fertility, even if it wasn't the intention. On the other side of my fear of being a mother was always this other fear that I used to really hide, which was my fear that it would be difficult for me to conceive since I always struggled with my hormones. But conceiving felt like a wake-up call from the universe to me, like, you're not sick, you're not broken, you're healthy. Break out of this narrative that something is wrong with you and your hormones in your body. You just experience things differently. So I changed my perspective about my health. And that also helped so much. And by the way, getting pregnant also seems to really help with PMDD. Not saying that's the path to healing, right? But it seems like there's something there. It might be the rise in progesterone. And third, and this is not to sell you on anything, I'm going to teach you how to use this spiritual tool without purchasing anything, okay? But I do want to tell you, I make the goddess amulet. And this amulet proved to me the power of my talismans more than any of the others, because it's such a bringing the immaterial to a material thing. I've seen the prosperity amulet, I've seen them all work, but the goddess amulet is a fertility powerhouse. I've had people who had tried for years to get pregnant within weeks of starting to wear it. I had a friend in her 40s who wanted to get pregnant naturally and she couldn't for years. I sent her the amulet and within a couple months they did conceive naturally and they just had their baby. And now you can buy it and you can support my work and have this gorgeous necklace that you can pass on to other women who might need it after you get it, after you get what you need from it. It's also not only for fertility, it's also for creativity and for intuition and just feminine energy. But you can also go on my website, you can look at the amulet, you can look at those 3 Hebrew letters, and then you can copy them down on a piece of paper and put them under your pillow or carry them with you. Those letters are the ones that carry the power. Those are the main power of the amulet. The rest, the metal and wearing it on your body and the intention behind the process of creating each one of my talismans, that protects you, that enhances your manifestation, and it all helps, right? But the main power comes from those 3 letters. So write that down and keep it with you if that's what you need. Or support me and my work and get yourself a beautiful little necklace on alchemybyla.com. Lastly, talk therapy actually. This also really helped me. I had to confront my fear of commitment, of responsibility, fear of failure in this role, and working through the fears I had around bringing life into this world. This allowed me to peel away layers of blockages that was keeping chi and energy out of my body. So I hope this episode was helpful to everybody, not just necessarily people who are looking to start a family or in the process. I do hope it applied to everyone on their spiritual journey in whatever way that it needed to, that you heard what you needed to hear. Because birth is really the ultimate metaphor for all of reality. We're constantly dying to old parts of ourselves. We're constantly being birthed anew, constantly birthing things too, right? We birth books, stories, experiences, ideas. Our manifestations are all births. It's birthing. All of creation is a birthing of something. Oh, and by the way, I am having a daughter, and it is just mind-boggling to know that I'm in the process of building this little universe inside of my own body. I love you. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please send me an email or post a comment somewhere. Thank you for being here, and until the next episode, as always, remember to honor the beautiful, marvelous universe inside of you, because as above, so below.